Hello, PreSales Collective. It's your host, James Kaikis, and thank you for joining today's episode of Virtual Ready SEs with Steph Barnett. Steph is the director of the APAC Emerging Solutions Engineering Program at Salesforce. And what that is Steph leads a program of college grads or early stage career individuals who want to make a move to pre-sales. We discuss how our new cohort switched from in-person to virtual and some of the learnings. For me, I got so much more out of this episode than just understanding what a virtual entry-level program looks like, but learned how to manage people. What are some things we could be doing virtually from an individual perspective, from a management perspective? And it was a really impactful session. Steph has so much passion and her personality really comes out in today's episode. So enjoy. Good morning, Steph. How are you?
Great. Thank you, James. How are you?
I'm doing well. I always love recording with people that are in APAC because they're like in the future. You know, it's Wednesday morning, you're having your cup of coffee, getting ready for your day. I'm winding down, I'm ready for dinner. It's always kind of funny to have this conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to look at the future right now, it's glorious and rainy in Singapore this morning. The future is beautiful, nice and rainy, very steamy. I've been doing a lot of working out at home, right? Because during the pandemic, if there's anything that I started doing differently, it was a lot of working out from home. And I love on your Apple Watch when it tells you what the weather is like. And I just love feeling like this total badass who's like, I look at the thing and it says, oh, okay, it's 32 degrees and 97% humidity. And I'm like, I just worked out in that. I'm all over this.
That's great. I've been against the Apple Watch. I feel like it's too much connectivity, but if you're going to tell me it's worthwhile, then maybe that's a conversation. I just moved over to the AirPods. I just purchased a pair.
Oh, yeah. I got the new ones with the comfy little things in your ears as well. It makes such a difference. And the battery life being long as well. I'm in a lot of meetings, so it's nice. It's definitely nice. I love the different faces you can have. I had the pride face for an enormous amount of time. It's like all rainbow and glorious.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah, I love the other one. I'm kind of like one of those kind of gold star people that, you know, it tells you like, have you stood up enough today? Have you run enough today? And when the rings are going around, you feel like, yes, I'm achieving something.
I love that. I promise this podcast is not sponsored by Apple. I wish it was, though.
Absolutely not.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I'm really looking forward to our session on Virtual Ready SEs. Definitely a really fun topic and super timely right now. I would love to hear about your story and how you got into pre-sales.
I feel like I'm so incredibly lucky to have found pre-sales when I did. I often say to people that I feel like pre-sales is the best job that no one's really ever heard of before. And I found it by accident. I certainly didn't know about it in university. I don't come from a technical background whatsoever. But I started my career at Salesforce actually in outbound sales. So a business development representative. So my responsibility was generating pipeline and opportunities for my account executives in the enterprise space. And I'm a really like driven person and I love targets and measures and metrics. And I was like, sales is the place to be for that. That's amazing. I'm really competitive. I'm competitive with myself and I'm just really ambitious and like sales is where it's at, man. This is awesome. So, you know, natural progression from outbound sales to being an account executive myself. And I was in the emerging small business and startup space from a sales perspective. And I just loved that I was talking to the business owners and I loved their energy. And I loved that they had the hustle to actually do things differently that big companies weren't thinking about. I'm like, oh, I'm all in and I want to support them. And what I found in all of these different conversations with all of these different businesses with different levels of maturity, my favorite part was the demo. That moment where you take every little challenge and problem that they have and then you visually show them this is what your life can look like if you go with this solution. Like, this is what it looks like. I call it like the spirit fingers moment, like in Bring It On. And I was just like, I want to do this all the time. Like, this is amazing. And I was helping all my other teammates with their demos and I was having so much fun doing it. But for me, there was a very strong preconceived notion that in order to get into pre-sales, you need to have a computer science background, an IT background. I used to be terrified of the SEs myself because I was like, you know, if you're going to go ask an SE a question, you better have tried 3 different scenarios first. Like, you're going to go talk to the smart people. Don't be the silly AE that's going to like waste their time. You know, kind of walk up slowly to their desk. You know, don't make eye contact, like quietly bowing. I was terrified of them because they're so smart and they were like the people on stage who know all the things. And so I was like, there's no way I could ever being one of those. But I really, really, really wanted to. Like, I feel like I'd found that niche. And so I was in the middle of studying my master's, and I'm like, well, I can't kind of flip it right now into computer science or IT. I was doing like a master's in strategic management of innovation and technology, but it's different, right? It's not deep tech. It was more on the business and strategy side. And so I went to the leader of our solution engineering organization. Her name is Terry. She's still the leader of the organization there. And I said, like, what do I need to study? What do I need to do? Like, once I've done my master's, tell me what I need to do. And she's like, how about you just show up and interview? Give this a go, right? I get goosebumps every time I think about it because it was such a pivotal moment. It was Di and Julian Ford and Chris Ty. These three people really took a chance on someone new. I come from an accounting and marketing background with no tech whatsoever. And just having someone take that chance. And it was risky. Like, I was the first salesperson within Salesforce in Asia Pacific to move from sales into solution engineering.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. I know, it was super cool. And I felt so lucky. And so naturally I got the role, and that started my career. And it was so funny because I became the solution engineer for my existing sales team, which was super fun. So like one day I'm sitting next to them. They thought for a while I was hot desking with the SEs. And I'm like, no, it's for real. It's for real. The funny thing is that my team would be like, Steph, you're literally like glowing. Like, what is it? And I'm like, I've literally just found the best job in the world. All I do all day is listen to all of the different complex challenges businesses face. And I get to know about businesses I've never even heard of before. And I get a huge diversity of conversations. Like, it just grows your brain. And then my job is to help them. And also on top of that, the expectation is that I set aside time to educate myself. I'm like, what is this like wizardry? What is this job? And so, my love for pre-sales has only just continued to grow and grow and grow.
So you stayed in this segment, is that correct?
In like the emerging small business and startup space as an SE, I worked as a team lead, stepped up to be the leader for the Australia and New Zealand emerging small business and startup team. And that was amazing, right? Because I always wanted to stay in that space. If there is a sweet spot for me, it's fast moving, emerging markets, driven customers, short time frames, like adrenaline, like go, go, go. That's the place for me. So while I had options to go into other areas of the business, I always stayed in this space because it was just super cool. Me coming through this path, it naturally opened up the door for others to do the same. And so you had all kinds of interesting people coming through the funnel internally within Salesforce from all different backgrounds. Or you would have your traditional stream, like your IT majors, your computer science, or your software developer side as well. But the big thing I saw there was that they never got into pre-sales straight away. They always had to go into like a high churn career. So it was something like help desk or doing dev work. They had to go and do a job out of university they didn't want to do in order to get that requisite 3 to 5 years on your CV to then get into pre-sales. And I was thinking like, what a huge waste of incredible energy and talent. Like, you come out of university and you're like, I want to do all the things and I've got all these great ideas. And we were losing that. And we weren't losing it completely, of course, because, these solution engineers were incredible. But I was like, imagine what would have happened if we'd actually harnessed that from the beginning and helped people build their careers from that point. That's a huge gap. So with the support of our incredible APAC solution engineer leader, Dan Bogner, I said, man, we've just got to like bridge this gap. Let's give this a go. Let's create a program that takes anyone from any degree and turns them into an incredible solution engineer in 12 months. We were struggling to hire externally as well, right? It just didn't make any sense to me that we were missing this huge talent pool and they were right in front of us, but there was just no way to get them in the door. So it's like, why don't we build them? Why don't we take that incredible energy? These guys are the customers our customers are trying to figure out right now. They're literally the target market. So I was so lucky. Again, another time in my career where someone has taken my crazy idea and backed me. And our first cohort of our emerging SE graduate program was 4 incredible people in Sydney. So we're just in Sydney, a little pod all together. I will never forget the moment I was sitting there with Dan and we were watching them present straight out of uni, don't really know what pre-sales is, presenting better than a lot of external professional people. Like, I'm getting goosebumps. I just looked at Dan and he was just like, whoa. And we knew he'd stumbled on something super cool.
It's great. No, I appreciate it. There's a lot of things that you said in there. I love when people talk about their pivotal moments in their career. I actually want to have an entire podcast episode on the different selling motions, because I actually don't love that people are like, you go from SMB to mid-market to general to enterprise, when it's all just about selling motions. And at the end of the day, I like the fast pace too. You said something that is really important. I think this is why we started the PreSales Collective, is you said this is the best job that no one has ever heard of, right? And it really is. And I think it's a great secret. But I think the reason why we're continuing to build the PreSales Collective is more people need to know about this job. More people that have skills that would excel here, like the examples that you're giving, need to give them the opportunity, get diversity in the pipeline, and let people build and grow and see where this talented field takes us. Because I think in 5 to 10 years, pre-sales is going to be so different than it is today. And I'm truly excited for it. And I think programs are building the future of what our space is going to look like. So maybe that's the transition to virtual ready SEs. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the program that you're currently running?
Okay, sure thing. So pre-COVID, our program was a highly practical program where we take anyone from any background, any degree discipline. So we have, PhDs in chemistry, experimental physicists. I have a credible fashion designer. We have IT backgrounds as well. We have deep tech backgrounds too, but we take them on this journey. And what we do is we look at building an incredible solution engineer from a skill set perspective. An incredible solution engineer really embodies like 5 characteristics. It's having that deep empathy for our customers. We need to be able to put ourselves in our customers' shoes. Salesforce has incredible technology, and we can show you the sexiest demo ever, but sometimes it's not fit for purpose for that exact customer. Sometimes it's too many clicks. Like, unless we say, will this make this experience better for you? And actually put ourselves in their shoes, we could just, spirit fingers demos all the way, but not actually serving a purpose. Can you tell a story? Like, how do you weave all of these challenges together? So Salesforce's technology, there's a lot there, right? We have so many different solutions here that work beautifully together. And we understand it because it's our job to deep dive into it. How do we translate that incredible architecture for our customers to understand? We do it through storytelling. And that's not something that comes naturally to everybody. And it's something that we coach them through because it's really important. There's the strong curiosity, the tendency to want to drive towards tinkering and solving problems and the analytical skills. And we give them a lot of space to flex in that area. And then there's, the affinity towards technology as a whole, right? Like, what do you like to do to tinker with technology? How do you go about that? And what is your thought processes behind that as well? So there's a lot of characteristics that make an incredible solution engineer, and our program taps into that. And it really does it through building people, through helping them understand processes. We do that through a highly practical program. And so when COVID came in, our biggest concern was we get our solution engineers working practical demos very, very quickly. We want them to have a high velocity of practical experience across the platform. And we were like, oh my goodness, what happens if the practical opportunities disappear? Like, what are we going to do? It's a massive differentiator for our program. And it's how we take someone who is a fashion designer or who is a PhD in chemistry. It's a great leveler. We had to really reimagine what this would look like, but also ensure we maintained the integrity of what it is that we do that makes an incredible solution engineer.
That is so interesting. And I love when you talk about the skill set, because none of those things are like these hard skills that everyone says you need to have to be in technology, right? I think of plenty of people, like myself. I worked in operations and I'm in pre-sales. Like you said, your accounting background. There's so many people that have stumbled into this career. I was talking to somebody today, actually, Steve, who helps run the Scout program in the US. And we were talking about this. And I told him 2 of my favorite profiles to manage so far have been musicians and English majors. For whatever reason, there's some really great similarities. And Steve and I talked about teachers and getting teachers into the pre-sales role. So I love programs like the one you're running, and I love the building blocks that you've mentioned, because those things, they're not synonymous of what you think of with pre-sales, but these are the fundamental skills that, can translate to success in this field. I love that. I really do. When you talk about building this practical program in pre-COVID, how has the transition been to a virtual only environment?
The thing that I found super heartening is that I feel like our emerging SEs have adjusted faster and better than I have myself.
Crazy how that happens, huh?
I know. I think it's incredible. I think the first thing is that luckily the team had a little bit of time together beforehand, so they kind of got to know each other first and they've kind of then gone into this space. What has really changed for them is, to be honest with you, not a lot. There's still a ton of customer activity for them to be working on. They have moved so seamlessly into the virtual space. I feel like if anything, it's brought them closer together. Like if we used to see within, Australia, divisions between different states, it doesn't exist anymore. It's almost like, you would have all of Sydney in an office dialing into a meeting and they'd kind of forget that somebody else was on the line. You don't have that anymore because everybody's online. We've been very, very focused on how do we empower our solution engineers to do engaging presentations in virtual. So if I think back to the capstone part of our program where our solution engineers do a presentation to the senior leadership team, and we want them to move between different mediums. We have them whiteboard. We have them give compelling presentations through things like Experience Builder, taking people on journey. Moving between different mediums is really challenging in a virtual environment. So we've had to kind of double down on an investment of like, imagine this person has been at home in front of their laptop all day. What are you going to do that actually helps them remember? Because I know we use storytelling as a tool to help our customers remember us. And we tie back to value and we do these things. But like, what is it that you're actually going to do that's going to wake them up in their seat and be like, that was the most informative meeting I've had today. I actually learned something. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on it and experimenting with it as well and having a lot of fun. And the coolest thing that I found is that a lot of the feedback on how we can make this more interactive is not coming top down from myself and my leadership team to the ESEs. It's the other way. It's like, why don't we do this? Why don't we put a quiz in there? Why don't we pause? Why don't I start whiteboarding and do something super engaging and creative on my iPad and then flip between the two screens? And I'm like, yes, that's awesome. So I guess the biggest change is we've always taken on board feedback from our emerging SEs into our program, but they've been really driving of like, this is what we need for it to be engaging. So this is what we think our customers need as well, which has been really interesting.
That is so refreshing to me because I think so many times we sit here and we think we have to solve all of the problems. And really, when your team can do it, you can put something out there. That is my favorite thing as a leader, right? Is like when you put a challenge out there and someone on your team can help solve it. Like that's what it's all about.
Totally.
I think one of the things that I really like that you mentioned is how our customers are changing and how they're absorbing. Because I think so many times we sit here and focus on our demo and our presentation and what we need to do in this virtual environment, but we're not putting ourselves in the shoes of our buyers, especially, those that are not in technology, that are not used to being at home and taking calls and buying from home. That is such a dramatic shift and a change. And it's so amazing and refreshing to hear that your teams are thinking about that. One of the things that we started doing was utilizing Menti and doing polls and quizzes.
We're doing like Kahoot quizzes, man. They're so fun.
Kahoot is great. And it changes things up because my whole perspective is, yes, they're buying at home and they're seeing other vendors. What is going to separate you? What is going to differentiate that experience? Because at this point, the best product might not win because you want the best buying experience for the customer. Anyone who listens to me just hears me talk about customer centricity all the time. And like, this is the most important time for it. Sounds like maybe you've had more challenges adjusting to an environment of virtual versus them. What difficulties have you and your peers faced during this time that maybe you weren't ready for?
So this is super interesting. I think the first thing is that even though I'm still early in my career, there were really traditional thought processes around working from home. And the first one was like, visibility is everything. I can see you nodding right now, man. You're just like, yeah, visibility is everything. You have to be at your desk to be showing that you're productive. And, it's not like a Salesforce thing. I think it's a general thing. Like to be seen is to show that you are being productive, showing that you're in the office, being there. And also working from home used to be a thing of like, it's something that you had to kind of earn. You had to kind of prove that you could be trusted to do that. And then on like a more personal level, as a woman and a female leader, I have 2 children. I was always mindful of, if I'm not visible, especially at times when people would expect me to be out picking up my children, even though, I have incredible support helping me with that. If you're a woman who's working from home, it looks like, you're probably just looking after your kids and not working. And so for me, I never thought at all I could possibly work from home as much as I have or be productive. And I was worried myself of like, well, how will this help people know what I'm doing? Am I going to have exposure to the right people? I've also relocated. I've just moved from Sydney to Singapore. How am I going to get to know people if I'm in my home right now? Like, it was just, I couldn't get it through my head. I liked that mental separation of you're in the office and then when I'm home, I'm at home with my children. And so naturally, when school shut down, it was a whole new ballgame, right? We were homeschooling in the morning and fitting work around it. I always try and have this pose of like, I am a strong female leader who has all their stuff together. And then my son will come like snipe in the background of the conference call and he's like dancing in the background or like dropping words that sound like swear words in the background. He's 5, a delightful human as well. And like shimmying out. My daughter will just come in from the swimming pool and just like sit in my lap. And I'll be sitting with my team, coaching them on something. And she's telling me to go make her a drink. And you're just like, I promise. I'm an incredible human. So for me, it's been an incredible and eye-opening journey of like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we used to expect people to do that was so unnecessary, but it was going to be so hard to change that unless something like this came through. Like there was never a question, for my leadership team there, but I report to a lovely gentleman in Melbourne. There's never any question for him. He can't see me anyway. I'm in Singapore. He would have all of these things that existed to say that you're only showing value if you're actually visible were really irrelevant, and they got really stuck in my head. And now I love it. I feel like the office for me is going to be the place that I go to connect with my team, like actually connect with my team. It's a social and collaboration space, not a like, I'm going to sit next to you all day while I'm on endless conference calls with every other region that I'm working with. It's changed the way I view the office. The office will not be the place I go to sit and do work. I'm far more efficient here, far more focused here, and I will go to the office for way more collaborative purposes.
I will be the first to admit that I've always been an office manager and encouraged people to be in the office, maybe work from home one day a week, because I've been so focused on collaboration and building a culture. And I love that you talked about that because it's vulnerability, right? You're acknowledging like, hey, this is not what I thought it was. And really, I'm the same boat. I feel so much more productive at home. I can't imagine going back to the office more than 2, maybe 3 day max a week. So yeah, it's such an adjustment. So Steph, you mentioned, being at home with the family all day long, right? And what happens then is you're blurring the lines between work and professional. Lines blur when you're at home. A lot of people are sitting in front of their computer all day long. So how do you ensure that your team is separating their work life and their personal life?
So this is so important, and especially when we're working with early in career talent, because we know with Gen Z, millennials, however you want to define them, that switched onness is something that is ingrained with them. But they're not like just digital natives, they're tech ingrained. And so while I, in some way, am very fortuitous to have the distraction of my son or my daughter running in from the pool and making their dinner requests, a lot of our early career professionals don't have that distraction. So I have to be very purposeful in coaching each one of them to make sure they do actually switch off. And first of all, it's leading from the front. Myself, we do tea time at the end of the day. And when my kids run in from school and tell me like, it's time for you to go make me some pancakes or whatever, I will literally like, okay, guys, like it's time to switch off. Like when your boss is like, you know what? I have to go now. It's totally fine. Leading from the front is very, very important there. But also it's having the right questions in one-on-ones of not just like, how are you feeling? Most people just say, good. I'll be like, what are you doing to switch off? Or if I'm noticing late emails, I do not send late emails. I use scheduled send on purpose because, when I do finish off at certain times, I will pop back and finish off some work, but I never set the expectation you should be reading emails between certain points of time. Like after 5:30, don't expect anything from me. A scheduled send will make it look like miraculously it landed in your inbox at 8:08 in the morning.
Right.
So it's leading from the front, first of all. Second of all is asking the question, what are you doing to switch off? And you can see it in people too. You can hear it in your voice. If anything, we have been forced as leaders to be even more present and listen to the words being said because you can see it. And it's not just about switching off. Some people want to switch on. They want that physical interaction with people, or we would switch up our one-on-ones and have walking one-on-ones, which is super fun in Singapore because you have to wear a mask. So instead
we're
of
doing
being
the
like,
same. We're doing the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of being like, can you see my screen? It's like, can you hear me through the mask? Does it sound like I'm underwater? But just like getting out and looking after themselves, and then having those scheduled wellness spaces as well that work across different time zones. So we would have these APAC wellness sessions. So it was lunchtime in Singapore, mid-afternoon in Australia, and early morning in India. And we would just have a therapeutic, like we've had boxing sessions, like shadow boxing sessions that you just get together. And it's so cool. And, if you'd asked me a year ago if I would ever like work out with my team, camera on, the uncoordinated human that I am, the answer is absolutely no. But you've got to show up and you've got to be like, you know what? I am going to be dying in the middle of those like bicycle crunches. This is not going to go as planned. It's not about being perfect. And also it's not about, the COVID kilos time. This is literally, let's sweat it out. Let's feel better. Let's listen to a mad playlist that just gets the blood pumping. And we'll sweat it out as a team. And afterwards on Hangouts, we're like, I'm dying. I've got nothing left. Like all of the emojis.
I'm so glad that you're leading from the front. I think that's super important. And I think other people need to take your perspective and incorporate themselves. You're humanizing the experience for your team and building culture when you can't necessarily be face-to-face. So I really love that perspective.
Yeah, 100%. We are really responsible. When people are early in their career in the office, we know they're going to be working harder. They want to prove themselves. We need to show them that proving yourself does not equal burning out. You have to look after yourself and you need to ingrain it in every single day, especially right now.
Especially right now. What does a virtual ready program look like?
A virtual ready program, as we're seeing across all the different regions, it has a lot more structure. So what I pride myself in my program is that we give people the flexibility to follow their passions. Like we have very clear milestones as to what we want them to hit, which really funnel into the core characteristics that we're looking to build. So what we're trying to do is give them more structure at the beginning to set them up, be more prescriptive, but at the same point in time, still give that freedom. So that's the first thing. Structure is really important. In the first month, it's almost like on a daily thing. And we don't kind of go through and assess it. This is not like a have you done all these webinars? It's like, this is what we'd recommend your learning outcomes to be this week. This is why we're getting you to do these things. Go through at your own pace. There is definitely not 8 hours of content. No way. No more than 3 to 4 hours maximum of self-paced learning. If you think about the fact that we have like 7.5, 8 hours, technically speaking, in the office, it's probably unheard of to be like, we're only going to do 3 hours of stuff today. But it is so important that we set these expectations of just this, but also take some time. In the office, you would have been having coffee chats with people. You would have been getting up and walking around. I always ask my team, I'm like, no lunch a la desco. Like lunch is separate from your desk. Like go enjoy yourself.
It's great that you do that.
Yes. There's all these things that you need to do that you could very easily just sit in your working from home space and not move all day. I guess the first thing is structure, but very clear communication of this is not all you're supposed to do. But then the second thing is there is a lot more structured around the free spaces that you have in the day. It was incredible directive from our leadership of like, I want you to check in with your team every single day. This is a really hard situation. And for some people, it's harder than others. Like while I'm all bubbly and stuff, I am so introverted. So this working situation probably suits me a lot better than others. But there are others in my team who are like, I am craving that people connection. So what we do is we have structured connects morning and afternoon for our team. It's optional to dial in. We get together, we have chai time in India, we have tea time in Singapore. We have fun in those times as well. What I found at the beginning was we would have those times and everyone would be like, so how many people in your city got infected today? What's your lockdown like? And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, peeps, it's a COVID-free zone, my friends. And I got like Netflix party. I'm like, it is Brooklyn Nine-Nine time, people. We are having 20 minutes of Jake Peralta. I aspire to be Captain Holt. I cannot sit on a call and talk about COVID, like COVID-free zones. Super important. And so I guess what I'm talking about here, there's the social aspect, but also the well-being aspect was something that we have embedded and baked into our program. Well-being is very personal, and we, from a company perspective, have incredible structures, and I'm sure you have the same in North America as well. There's meditation classes, there's, high-intensity workouts, there's cooking classes. That's fantastic. We also get our team together to do their well-being activities together, all different types, but across the region as well. What we found is that COVID has actually helped us bring together all of us across regions, even Singapore and India, all together, because all of the boundaries are gone and we're all on one screen. It's almost like the Brady Bunch grid view in Google Meet is now our team. Like, that's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. Borders, countries, time zones, irrelevant as well.
That really is so great. And I really am interested in how the people that are going through this virtual program are going to be better equipped and better suited for success in the long run, because I think most of us have learned from in office adjusting to virtual. And so if you have all these people that started as virtual and they're adjusting in office, it's really kind of an interesting thought, right?
It's going to be super interesting.
Do you think that the people that are going through this virtual ready program are going to be better positioned in the medium to long term?
I think it's a super interesting question. I don't know if I can say they're going to be better equipped, because I feel like their context is just completely different. There are things that will not fill their headspace because they didn't exist. So those things that I mentioned to you before, visibility equals productivity. I've got to be seen to be showing value. They don't have those constraints in their minds anymore. That just doesn't exist.
It is amazing to hear that those constraints won't exist anymore.
Just in terms of culture as a whole, I really hope it continues, right? I really hope we don't revert back to that. Like, I feel like we've had an opportunity to really address those things, but I think that's incredible. The whole looking busy isn't the pinnacle. It really is the output, because the output is all that can be seen, which is incredible. What I do think, and what I have seen, which I think is so evolved, and you would have seen this as an SE leader yourself, when you're building the capability of your SEs, you've got your product skills, you've got your tech skills, and then you kind of get to the trusted advisor level where people are doing things like workshopping and facilitating. But that was kind of like something that you get to in 18 months to 2 years' time. Once you've got your confidence behind you, what we're seeing now is that our emerging SEs are doing that kind of workshopping now because they've been forced to kind of formalize that skill set. You used to just kind of jump into a meeting room, whiteboard it up, but now we can't do that. You're not going to get the results you need. And so I'm seeing people who've been in their pre-sales career for 2 to 3 months on Jamboard, getting everyone together. It's like, okay, let's talk about the big rocks, doing like an ignite. And that's amazing. Like, I of course just got goosebumps thinking about it. I wish I was that evolved when I was 3 months into my career. I would have been like, workshop, no, thank you. That's for like the senior SEs. That's not for me. But they've been forced to think, how can I get these outcomes? How can I give people that space to bring those ideas to the table? They haven't been confined by the notions of like workshopping is for senior SEs to do. It's like, oh, I've got to do it. It's like, I've got to customize it. Like, or as a team, we've got to build together, and this is how we have to do it. So I definitely think being able to facilitate workshops and also seeing that really evolved characteristic of being like, so Tiffany, I haven't heard you speak on the call. Really teasing out that whole, you can't have the silent person on the call. You've got to give them the space, and you've got to really proactively do it, because you can't see them in the room not speaking. They're actually fully engaged in the content and the conversation that's going on.
I really enjoyed that perspective. And it's making me think around boundaries and borders, because I think we so confine them together, and we talk about like country differentiation and culture differentiation, but really the skill differentiation in our role is amazing as well. Can we talk around the workshop component? What has that training and enablement looked like? Because you're exactly right. It's meant for quote unquote senior individuals, and even people that are 3, 4, 5, 6 years are hesitant on it, or say it's a specialist role. I personally think it's part of our day-to-day, and it should be. And so those are things that I'm working toward as a leader myself. But what are some things that you have done in the program that has allowed you to enable these individuals to be successful so early on?
Absolutely. So the first thing was just exposure to the methodology. So they actually saw it in action. We always ask our emerging SEs to participate. We get a lot of asks from our leadership team because they bring such cool perspective and new ideas, and they feel really empowered to speak up. One of the ways we got exposure was through a not-for-profit workshop that occurred. And they said, we always get great ideas out of your SEs. Can they join this meeting? They did this meeting in Jamboard or in another tool called Miro, and they come back to me and they say, Steph, this was quite possibly the coolest, most interactive meeting. Can we learn it? So first of all, again, it's coming from them. Then we connected them with the incredible people. So we have an internal team called Business Consulting, and we basically ask the consultants to teach a version of this, of how do you facilitate a meeting? What is the methodology? What are the do's and don'ts? And our SEs are such fast learners. I think we forget this, that yes, it is an evolved skill. And yes, it is something that you will evolve over time. But the fundamentals are so straightforward. And the team love it because it's like a leadership role they can take, and it's a new skill. It wasn't anything all that complicated to do. It was just more of a focus on it. So first of all, they saw it. They drove it themselves, and they're like, we want to learn this more. And then just having incredible people in our business teach them how to do it. An hour and a half teaching them how to do it with the fundamentals. They just pick it up.
I love hearing the self-starterness. I'm personally a big fan, and I know not everyone is like that, but it's so good to hear. It sounds like you have a really great class. You actually have another class of people from Singapore and India. We're going to have to do a follow-up to understand how that group is going and maybe what challenges or faces happened as well.
Absolutely. No, I would absolutely love to have that conversation. We're going to learn a lot, right? And we're really excited by the fact that, again, we've spoken about it a few times now, we can really break down geographic boundaries because you're all on one call. And we're also breaking down boundaries between different segments in our organization. So we're going to be bringing our customer success and our sales strategy and our SE graduates all together because we can. We don't have those boundaries of we can't fit him in a meeting room. Do you know? You'd be like, oh, the boardroom fits 16. We can't have you in there. Everyone's just on this one call. So it's going to be so phenomenal to see those cross-region relationships built, but cross-organization relationships built as well, which is going to drive greater empathy and understanding for the entire customer lifecycle. And I really think it's going to help us deliver better customer experiences as a result.
That's great. I cannot wait to hear how it goes. And so I definitely appreciate it. But thank you for your time today, Steph. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Your passion is amazing. It's energetic. I can feel it through the computer all the way from Singapore. Really, thank you for your time. Your energy is fantastic. And I can't wait to hear about the next group of emerging SEs in the virtual ready environment.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've loved having a chat.
Absolutely. So before we sign off, we always ask 2 last questions for you. So the first one is, what is your favorite thing about the pre-sales role?
I think it's that moment, especially when you're in the final presentation to a customer and you can see the actual people in the room who you've just made their day so much better because they've just seen their future day and their eyes are open and they're just like, whoa, what? And I'm like, it's like Christmas. I'm literally delivering a present and you get to open it and your life is going to be so nice moving forward for me. That's my favorite part, is actually seeing that.
That is such a good answer. When you see the light bulb go off in the customer, it is great. And maybe not in the room, but on the virtual Zoom, you're going to see that as well.
Well, that's it, right? You're going to see their faces light up. Or even, sometimes people don't want to call out or interrupt you. So like the emoji, like the clap, the applause that's coming up down the side, you're like, oh yeah, that's it.
Love it. I'm with you. I think mine's right behind you there. So what advice do you have for people who want to step up their virtual presence?
Oh, great question. Oh, that's awesome. And again, I'm going to steal the advice straight from my emerging SEs, to be honest. They've really stepped up and showed me what I need to do as well. There's like this hilarious meme going around on Instagram, which is like you start every meeting with, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it? Like, we don't need that anymore. Just walk in the room, be like, hey, I'm Steph. It's so great. Like even just your comment of what's happening where you are. I feel like we're kind of decorporatizing our language and we're just helping people feel more warm and welcome in our language. So that's the first thing. Just like be human, be like, hey, like, how's it? You're like, oh, I love your background. I love what's in the background there. What's going on? Just build that warmth and that connection. It's going to be a differentiator for you because there are still people who are uncomfortable and people miss that smile, that friendliness. The second thing is put yourself out there more. Like the virtual presence thing, my SEs right now are doing this initiative on LinkedIn, helping people understand we totally get it. We've also just worked from home and, we've been getting up later and we've had puppy force at home because we've had our puppies there. And it's going to be quite a transition and kind of sharing their learnings through videos on LinkedIn. So just do little bits and pieces here and there. Bringing your authenticity through is a massive differentiator. Take advantage of those boundaries that are broken down that no longer exist. It's been so much fun watching my interns across Singapore and India, just chatting like no one's business, but also like having fun with the fact that there's some noise in the background. One of our interns lived next to a nature reserve where there was heaps of birds. He had to be on mute often and he'd just be like, check it out, these are the birds. Like you're just looking at this nature reserve in Bangalore, just like lean into it, have fun with it. What an incredible opportunity that we have right now. That's all I can really think of.
Steph, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate our conversation. And thanks for being on the PreSales Podcast.
Thanks so much, James.
Steph's personality really comes out and really shines in this episode. We had a lot of fun recording. I personally got a lot out of this conversation. I think the most impactful thing was the fact that this is the best job that no one's ever heard of. Really, this is why we started the PreSales Collective and why we want to continue to change that narrative, because it is such an amazing job and such an amazing profession. When Steph talked about the building blocks of what makes a good SE and talked about empathy and storytelling and curiosity, I love that. And I think it's so important and so impactful, especially for those that are early in their career or want to make a move to pre-sales. Those are the things that matter, right? We're not sitting here talking about being a technical expert. You can learn how to do things technically. You absolutely can. And I love that people are extremely resilient and borders may not matter anymore. That is a really fascinating thing to think about, that some people walk into the business world don't care about borders. They're used to being virtually. And I thought that was fantastic. And I really like the fact that we talked about decorporatizing our language, because it really helps from a customer centricity perspective. And the biggest learning that we could all walk away from is leading from the front during these crazy times. It's critical for success. It's critical for team building and for bonding. I hope you enjoyed yourself on today's episode. Tune in every Monday for a new episode. Please follow on LinkedIn, share our podcast with your friends, and send me some feedback on Slack. We're always trying to get better, always want to make this more impactful. So I'll be looking forward to your messages. See you, PreSales Collective.